Hello and welcome back. Susan Zumo here, intuitive and originator of soul patterning harmonics. Well, now that the dust has settled a little bit and everybody's calmed down a little bit, I wanted to get back to a question that one of the viewers asked a couple weeks ago. The question was about the shift, about the ascension process. And it was, will everyone get there? Will we all get there together? How long will it take? And how will we know? Well, I thought those were good questions, and I wanted to take the time out today to address them. Of course, as soon as I asked my intuition that question or those questions, I got a whole bunch of other kind of information that went off on a tangent too, and we'll get to that as well. So first, when I asked that question, are we all going to get there? The answer I heard was, eventually. We all have different frequencies. And if we remember that the shift is all about frequency, how we get there is by lifting our frequency. And so everyone has their own frequency right now. And there is a range of frequency that when we get enough individuals in that range, we jump an octave. That's how frequency works. When you have something called rhythm entrainment, then that sound wave, that frequency wave, will jump an octave, and that causes the great shift. Some of us will not want to for many, many reasons, and it may not even be a conscious choice. Remember, your soul is never going to push you towards anything that's going to be harmful. And if the frequency range is so divergent from where we might be at a given moment, then it's going to be painful to be in that new frequency. It's going to cause a discord, a disharmony. And that can cause a great deal of pain, which can also cause a great deal of painful events. And the soul is never out to harm us. Creator Source is never out to harm us. And so everybody gets there at their own pace. There are those of us who will run to the front of the line and do everything we can to get there at the very beginning. And there are others of us who will take our time and move at a pace that is comfortable for us. If it becomes too uncomfortable, some of us will elect to leave and come back in a different frequency, maybe in a different timeline, and experience opportunities to make that shift again. There is no judgment about that. Because we want everybody to get there with us, we want everyone to move at the same pace that we do and accomplish the same shifts that we do. And that can't always happen. And so we must be like Creator Source. We must love ourselves and others unconditionally and allow them and us to move at a pace that is safe and healthy for us, knowing that we're all going to get there in the end. So, yeah, we're all going to get there, just not at the same time as we're talking in terms of time, right? So that led to, well, how will we know? And what I heard was, you will know because you will be free of fear. And I know we've talked about this a lot before. Then they asked me the question, are you living on a prison planet or are you living in a paradise? And my answer was both, right? Both. Because what makes this a prison planet is fear. Fear is what keeps us locked into a prison. Our institutions, our loving individuals who want to protect us and save us and all that good stuff, they're the structure which the fear flows through. If you look around at the institutions that we are living with today, they are a structure for which fear flows through and hits us on every level. that creates a prison for us to live in. Those criminals, controllers, archons, for them, fear, it's like dessert. It's like candy for the rest of us, right? It is the sweetest tasting thing they've ever had, and they love it. And so everything they do is designed to create fear within us. Therefore, we're in a prison. We're in a jail. Now, my guys always said to me, when you're in jail, you can either have a kind and loving warden, or you can have a cruel and mean warden. But you're still in jail. And so I wanted to talk about this today because growing up, I had a very kind and loving warden. My father loved me dearly, and he wanted to protect me from the world. And the way that he did that was to instill every kind of fear he could think of in me. He did such a great job of it, in his mind, protecting me by telling me all of the terrible things that could happen to me in the outside world. And as a child, I took that in. And the result was that I was afraid of life. You name it, I was afraid of it. But he loved me. He was a kind warden. And I had to overcome those fears. I had to heal them and release them, even though I know the reason that they were there, and that was for protection. My kids say I've done that to them, and they're right, because I carried that forward with me and instilled that in my children until I became aware and healed it. And I say this because I want you to examine your behaviors with yourself and others. Because if you are trying to protect others through fear, you're their loving warden. Now, we can choose to get out of jail. And we do that by healing ourselves, right? We do that by releasing fear. And we do that by finding trust and faith. And that comes from love. So in my way of thinking and in my belief, every time I release a fear, I have collapsed a particular timeline with particular events and experiences that I will not have to have in order to overcome those fears. And I invite you to do that as well, whether you see it as collapsing a timeline or moving frequency into the fifth dimension or density, however you want to see it. I see it as collapsing timelines. And I understand that model and it works for me. I hope it works for you. Now, there are cruel wardens, and we can see that in a lot of the institutions that we are living with today. We can see that we are being instilled with fear every time we turn around. And I don't even have to name them. I think you already know who they are. All you have to do is turn on the TV, pick up a newspaper. Sometimes all you have to do is talk to family and friends, watch a show and you'll see it. Everything in our world has been designed to create a structure through which fear can flow towards us and put us in prison. Well, the way to get out of jail when you have a cruel warden is exactly the same that you get out of jail when you have a loving warden. You eliminate the fear. And so in the last couple of weeks since we've had the elections in this country, fear has been running rampant all over the place. And boy, those little criminals are just having a feast, just loving it. If you want to shift, if you want to create the new earth, if you want to collapse your timelines, release fear. And if someone asks you how you did that, help them, right? We can do that. We can model that for others. We can step back and look at ourselves and ask, am I creating a prison or a paradise in my life for those I love to live in? That might be an eye-opening question for some of us. So now let's talk about paradise, because we are living in a paradise. We have the authority, the ability, and the frequency to create paradise in our lives. And you know, I've talked about this before. My guys have talked about this before. We do that through joy. We do that through love. We do that by having a great life. We do that by refusing to sink into despair and discouragement because things aren't looking like I think they should look. We look for the silver lining in every cloud. I have a saying that I say all the time with friends and coworkers. I'm going to silver lining it for you. I'm going to look for what's going to come out of this that's going to be positive, that's going to be great. And I'm going to hang on to that. That's just what we have to do sometimes. Loving self, loving others enough to allow them to have their experiences is how we create paradise. Not by controlling, not by patterning what the criminals do, trying to control everything and trying to control others. This world is a paradise. Our perception and our choices of how we handle our emotions and how we perceive the world are what create a prison or a paradise for us. I say the more of us creating a paradise, the sooner we're going to hit that frequency range and we're going to jump that octave. And I really hope that you're going to join me in this. We are here to support one another and to work together to lift frequency for ourselves and the world around us. We are not here to force others to think the way we do and believe the way we do, or to instill fear in them that we have, or that we think is going to make them better or safer. Control is a big issue on this planet now. And while we are looking to be in control of the outer world, of the actions of others, I hear my guys just giggling and saying, control yourself, maintain yourself. If you can do that, you can change the entire world. And I say to them, that's a pretty big job. And we are working on it. And we are going to get there. So the answer to all the questions that were asked is yes. We're going to get there. We are getting there. We are moving in the right direction. And we should never forget that. My guys said a couple weeks ago, hold the line. Keep your frequency up. Didn't they? They didn't say hold it for a week. They said hold that line, hold that frequency throughout the end of the year and into next year. And I think they knew what they were talking about. Because if you think that in the last 2 weeks, the controllers have thrown their hands up in the air and those criminals have gone home and they're done and they've given up, you are very naive. And I am too plain spoken to let you walk away with that kind of idea. We must hold our frequency now. We must keep our frequency in a place of love of self and expand that out into the world. We can look at people doing foolish things and we can, with humor, bless them. And we can allow them unconditionally to be who they are. It doesn't mean we have to be standing next to them while they're being who they are, but we can still allow them to do that. Hold your frequency. Have a good life. Have joy. I say it all the time. Dance, sing, play. Do what lifts your spirit. When I'm done with this video, I'm going to go bake some sourdough raisin bread. I'm going to go outside in the sun and I'm going to lift my eyes up and allow that sun to just pour over my face and my body and soak into every aspect of my being. That lifts my spirit. What lifts your spirit? Go ahead and let me know in the comments. Let's share what lifts each of us up. And that will help everyone. And so I hope that this week coming for you is one filled with joy and one that allows you out of prison, out of jail. Don't look to the jailer to tell you how to get out. They're not going to do that. We have to do it, every single one of us, and we can. We have to just remember who we are. Remember who you truly are. And that is the key to getting out of prison. So until next week, I hope you have a fabulous time. I hope life is fantastic for you. And you thumb your nose up at the controllers and have a good week. All right. Until then, many blessings.